I'll say it, I think at least the third time now. Yeah, we get it. We're Fudds, but it still has a place today. I don't care how many terrorists you have killed on Call of Duty. Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Podcast US, one of the world's biggest gun talk programs. I'm your host, Brent Wheat, welcoming you to yet another discussion about all the fun stuff in the great world of shooting. I'm joined, of course, by my co-host, Roy Huntington, and we're going to have a fun chat today. Well, Roy, we sometimes or frequently get accused of being Fudds, and we completely embrace that because to me that just says we've got experience, even though we're up to speed more than some folks might give us credit for. But today we're going to talk about shoot like it's 1955. And what I meant by that is we've talked about this a little bit before, but we're going to do a deep dive today. That's the idea that if you're a high-speed, low-drag operator, almost a tier 1 operator kind of guy or gal, you still need to do some bullseye shooting. And I'm sure there's a few bullseye shooting. Well, that's what Grandpa did. Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's the best they had at that point. But bullseye shooting is still an important part of your training. And if you go to any of the major shooting academies, Gunsight or whomever, your first shots are probably going to be on a bullseye target because marksmanship is pretty important. We're going to explain that more in depth. So anyway, Roy, how you doing? And welcome, fellow Fudds.
It was always interesting because a lot of the younger shooters just say, well, you're just Fudds, you don't know anything. And I always just smile and say, well, that's good. That's because you say that because you don't know anything.
Yeah. So bullseye shooting. I think you were a bullseye competitor at one point, and there's guys that still do that, and it's pretty amazing when you see a guy that's really good, especially with a single action or a revolver that he can cock and go single action. You're talking one whole groups there, and that's great marksmanship. And I know the counter argument, well, in a gunfight you don't have time to blah 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 blah, but I think it's been amply proven, and it shouldn't be even a point of discussion. If you can shoot a group like that calmly on the range under pressure when people are trying to kill you or your friends or family, your group size will get this big. So if you start out that big, now we're talking a group size this big and you're starting to miss. And the bullets have the bad guy's name on the front, your name on the back, and they never fails. They go into that busload of nuns and orphans that are going by the bad person. And there's that whole idea that if they're doing something bad enough to shoot, you ought to do something good enough on your end that you anchor them right then and there. And bad shooting doesn't do that. So anyway, that's kind of the thesis, Roy. Bullseye shooting, absolutely no discussion, has a place in the world of CCW training. So there you go. Run with it.
I spent 5 years shooting what's called PPC shooting, right? Practical police combat. There's other monikers for it. It's basically double action revolver shooting from a holster, slow fire, a little bit faster fire. None of it is really particularly speedy,
Mm-hmm.
So there's no splits, or anything like that. But it emphasized precision marksmanship. And so we went from 7 yards to 15 to 25 to 50 yards. And so a really good PPC shooter shooting a 38 special, would fill in the blank, revolver with target wad cutters could shoot 1.5 inches pretty commonly at 50 yards. So think about that for a minute, right? It's almost like, I don't know what, half MOA or 1 MOA at 50 yards. So with a double action revolver, shooting double action. And the people who I knew there tended to, of course, be gun guys, right? And they're all cops. And over the years, I knew some of them who had gotten into shootings on duty. And the really peculiar thing was the PPC shooters, the guys who really could shoot well there on the range, also shot really well when the chips were down.
Huh.
And
wow. What a corollary.
What a corollary. It was just like, gun comes out, 3 quick shots, it's over, thank you very much. you know?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, other people are emptying revolvers and going to backup guns, and bullets are hitting the nuns in the school bus, you know? And I mean, when I was a policeman on the San Diego Police Department, we had transitioned to auto pistols, and there was a guy on the SWAT team, real quiet guy, really nice guy. But he worked in the field, so they had something called a PRT, primary response team. So that was patrol guys who had SWAT gear in their trunk. And so they're on patrol, they're doing regular patrol work, but if something happens, they could respond immediately and kind of hold the fort if necessary. So he was one of those guys, quick to volunteer to take calls. If you were out on a call and you look around, there he is covering you, you know, that kind of a guy. And, but he was a real quiet shooter. And I used to see him at the range all the time because I was at the range all the time. And you would see him over in the corner, and he would be set up maybe at 7 yards and drawing from the holster 2 shots, clear the gun, put it back in the holster, 2 shots. And then you'd see him move back to maybe 15 yards and then move back to 25 yards. Shooting very slowly, very carefully. His target would be very well centered, right? And he got into a shooting, and it was textbook, you know. I mean, it was about a 25-yard shooting. One shot, 10 ring, took the guy down immediately. The other officers who were there, they said he was standing there and he just drew his gun, brought it up, squeezed the round off. It was done. There was no hysterics. There was no running and jumping. There were, you know, no mag dumps, you know. And so I think that illustrates what we're talking about more than anything. I mean, there was a man who understood the importance of accurate shooting. And you just don't get that by going to the indoor range and putting your target up at 7 yards and shooting 200 rounds into it as fast as you can pull the trigger. Yeah. You know, I don't know. We've done this several times. We've had this conversation, and the people who get it because they comment and they say, "You're exactly right." You know, best thing I ever did was learn bullseye shooting, you know. And then you see the newer people say, yeah, well, that's baloney because if, you know, it happens fast. And if you don't know how to act fast and all that, and it's like, yeah, well, you'll draw the gun really, really, really fast and you'll miss really, really, really fast.
Exactly. Well, at Gunsight, they often tell you cannot miss fast enough, you know? But I was going to say, Roy, I carry a silver dollar in my pocket. It's my little good luck piece. I'll bet you that silver dollar, we get at least 5 YouTube comments. Well, that's going to get you killed. You don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, Roy explained it pretty clearly. We're not saying that dump all of your other CCW, high speed, low drag, run, jump, you know, suspend from your ankles and all that. We're just saying you need to, especially when you're practicing on your own or training on your own, some slow, deliberate, intentionally accurate fire at different ranges is really going to help you. So
I've seen a lot of
Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I've seen a lot of competition shooters, high-end, internationally famous competition shooters, and I've been with them, and we've trained with them and stuff like that. And I mean, almost invariably, like we're like at an event or something, and they're talking to the writers or doing this, and everyone's shooting fast, and we're shooting steel plates, and everybody's having a good time, and he's shooting really steel. Invariably, at some point during that period, we're on the range. You will look over in the corner and professional shooter, whoever, fill in the blank, will be standing there, very carefully aiming, shooting precision shots onto a target, maybe 25 yards, you know, no fuss, no muss, just standing there, load a magazine, take his time. You see him get really good sight picture. You see him be comfortable, stand up straight, head up straight, bring the gun up to his eyes, shooting very precision shots, you know. Meanwhile, all we idiots are running around shooting steel plates under our leg, you know, and rolling in the dirt and all this stuff. But these guys can do that, but they can do that because they know how to do what he's doing, you know.
Exactly. You know, and I think it's a tragedy that, like our state, the standard police officer qualification, when I went through, you had to shoot 50 yards. and we were shooting with those wheel guns, those things that go round and round. And anybody's got to admit that shooting a double action revolver at 50 yards is not easier than shooting a modern double action, double stack 9mm. So we were shooting harder to operate gun, and we're still getting the hits. And now that's gone completely away. So, shootings do happen up close very quick, but if you don't have that tool in your toolbox we're always talking about, sometimes the guy's across the street or down the block and he's still shooting at you. So you need to do something. Obviously you'll get out of the line of fire, but if you can't get out of the line of fire, and I know of one incident where a police officer, the guy was over, I think it was a Jeep Cherokee or, a large bodied, an old one full of steel. And the guy had a AR and he's cranking rounds. And what he ended up doing was skipping rounds off the deck under the vehicle, took his ankles out from underneath him. And then they closed. And as he said, very understated, he terminated the encounter at close range. But the fact that he could get those rounds in there from like diagonally down the block behind other cover, he was trying to avoid being shot by this rifle. And, it's kind of that old Danny Glover thing, kind of okay, here we go. And took, like one or two shots and the guy goes down. That's because he had the ability to take that deliberate, accurate shot, and it ended the confrontation. That in the situation I'm talking about, he'd already killed a police officer with that rifle. So,
well, I have two things. First is Clint Smith, who is probably the smartest trainer I've ever known in my life, said something, and it's my mantra. I think when I try to teach people is, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Right? Yep. And people just don't understand that. When I teach people here sometimes, and we shoot at 22 very slowly, and they want to be shooting fast right away. And I always say, no, we're going to do this for a little while. Just calm down. We're going to do this for a little while. And then I had that conversation. So when you learn to do this, when you learn to hit, when you learn to be smooth, when you learn firearm manipulation skills, how to load, how to unload, how to holster, how to reholster, as you become smooth at that stuff, then you will become faster. And but people tend to go from, I just bought my new gun, to shooting as many bullets as they can, as fast as they can at the 5-yard line at the indoor range.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible mistake. So
yeah.
The other thing that it was interesting, I was doing a little research the other day, and since the advent of red dot sights with law enforcement, I could not find any information showing where the percentage of hits by law enforcement have increased.
Interesting.
Yeah. In other words, one would think, oh, we have this really cool new TV set red dot sight. It's supposed to do everything in the world for you. And I apparently, at least from the data that I could find, I did not see any indication that the rate of hits have increased. So if you're listening to this, you have access to that data, please leave a comment. I'd love to just hear what you have to say. But that goes back to what we're talking about. And I think that there is definitely a decrease in focus on accurate shooting in police training. So I've certainly seen that. Be interesting to see what Eric has to say. But you're right about gun sight. I mean, when I went to Thunder Ranch the first time, the first half day, all we did was learn how to load our magazine, chamber around, put it in the holster, draw safely, maybe one shot, maybe two shots on the target, very precise, reholster, think about what you just did. Why am I shooting low? That kind of stuff. And Clint had no patience for people who wanted to be SWATologists on the beginning of the first day.
Yeah.
Because it's just.
Well, one of the times I was at Gunsight, typically every class will start out with slow fire, and then most of the time they'll have you do a drill where you put one round on top of the other. And I remember, and I can't think who the student was, but we were shooting that and he was just getting exasperated and we're only 5 to 7 yards, but his shots were that far apart. And the majority of students were either very close or almost, one holing it. And he was so exasperated that, well, this is dumb. And that's what I tend to see among shooters is if you cannot achieve that performance, then you say it's dumb and you start justifying it. Well, I'll never need to do that. Well, you're right. You may never need to put 2 rounds right in the same hole, but if you have that capability down the road where you get into a 10-foot gunfight and bullets are flying, instead of flying from you, there's going to be 2 or 3 because you're accurate and you put the bad guy down. That's what's notorious about bad guys in shootings. As we often say, they don't care about hitting you. They just want to put rounds downrange. And think about, I don't think I've ever seen a study about this. The amount of the hit percentage of bad guys has got to be pretty low. And the amount of bystanders taken out, they're shooting at the cop right here, but they hit the nuns and orphans and the bus and all that stuff because they don't care. They don't practice. They don't train. And then the flip side of that is when you read about these terrible situations like the Ed with the shooting, the FBI Miami shooting. Those guys were trained, and I hate to say, but they did a good job because they trained and they worried about getting bullets on target. So even the bad guys that know getting on targets and accuracy are important under stress, they went out and they trained, and it unfortunately in this case showed. But I guess what I'm trying to get here is I don't understand what any debate of this is. Again, I'll keep saying it because I know we'll get the comments. We're not saying this is the only way to train and you should stand. I love those old pictures where they stand with their hand on their hip and one arm and all that. We're not saying do that, but we're saying you better be incorporating some precision bullseye shooting in even your high speed, low drag CCW training.
I say you should do that, what those old guys used to do with one hand shooting too.
Well, true.
Do it. It's fun, and it teaches you that because someday you're going to shoot with one hand, and then you shoot with your offhand, right?
Yeah.
I don't like to call it weak hand because it's not necessarily weak, but just shoot with your offhand. It's harder than you think, but like anything, it's when something happens, you revert to training. If you've never trained, that means you revert to nothing. Right?
Yeah.
So if you've never done that, you revert to nothing. There's 2 things I like to teach shooters to do. And they're real simple. Anyone in the entire shooting community can do this, and it will cost you exactly nothing. And that is that. First is the drill that you're talking about. Put a blank piece of typing paper up at 5 yards or whatever you're happy with, and put a shot on the target. Now, your next shot, you have to hit that shot. And then see where you come in. And if you don't come, if it's low and to the right, stop and think, what was I doing? Did I press the trigger right? Was my sight picture good? Was I in a hurry? Did I have my eyes closed? Right? And then put another shot on the target and see if you can kiss that shot. Because it's teaching you trigger control and sight picture and grip consistency and stance consistency. And it's teaching you all that kind of stuff because you've got to slow down, because if you can't do that, you'll never be a good shot. The other thing I like to do is to get a piece of typing paper and get a lid from a pickle jar or something and do a whole bunch of circles in lines on this typing paper. Maybe you've got 4 rows by 4 rows or something like that. So you end up with a piece of typing paper with all these little circles on it. So put it up at 5 yards or 7 yards. And I like to do this with a .22 pistol. It doesn't matter, revolver or semi-automatic or something like that. But what you want to do is slowly, you want to put one shot on each one of those circles. Just one shot. And the beauty of that is that it makes you slow down. There's no hurry. There's no clock timing anything. But when you shoot like that, you can see where that bullet hits. So if you shoot 10 shots on one of these, then now you don't have no idea where you're hitting, right? So one shot. So now when you shoot 6 or 8 or 1 page of this, if all of your shots are low left, then you know something's going on, right? You have to look into it. If your shots are well centered, okay, you're doing pretty good. Now you have a choice. You can keep repeating that. You can use the same target. That's fine. Keep repeating that. Do it 5 times, 10 times, doesn't matter what. So now, though, you can, if you feel comfortable, you can up the game. You can either speed up a little bit, just try to move a little bit faster,
Yep.
or you could go top right, bottom left, top left, bottom right, right? Practice moving your gun like that and taking those shots. But I promise you that there's no rules, so just make up whatever rules you want to as you go along. But it costs you just the cost of the ammunition, and I promise you it will make you a better shooter. And then now suddenly, when you're at the weekend match and there's a torso steel plate up at 15 yards, you're going to laugh.
Yeah.
Because it's like, really? Is this it? This is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have to like hit between the eyes. I just have to hit this torso, So,
yeah. Well, looking at the course of fire, going back to gun sight, because I've been to a lot of training academies. So have you, Roy? I've spent most of my time at gun sight. What always happens is we start, they'll start you with single shots, maybe do a single headshot, and then you start doing the 2 shots. And then they'll start saying, okay, put 2 shots center mass as fast as you can go. And what happens is your group size starts increasing. And at some point when it's bigger than, kind of a double fist thing, it may still be in the K zone, but it's getting too big. They'll say, okay, we now know that's too fast for you at your current skill level today. So slow down a little bit. Now, if they say, okay, go, and you put 2 holes and it's 1, they'll say, you need to go faster. Okay. You can do that, but you need to speed it up, and it will invariably open up your group size, but you have to be cognizant of when that group size is getting to be a little bit too big. So that's kind of a good indicator to help you decide, when am I shooting too fast? When am I shooting too slow? Because I will fully agree that standing there and doing the Danny Glover will probably get you hurt in a real gunfight, but it's this, you've got to strike this balance. And we've said that countless times, as has every other trainer in the world. It's not a and B thing. It's a balancing act, and going a little faster, a little worse marksmanship, going a little slower, better marksmanship, but you're at a greater risk. So that's a good way of looking or finding where your speed lies. And again, it's the idea, it's that day. So maybe you're not having a good day and you're not shooting well. So, okay, I got to slow down. Maybe you're having a great day and it's like, hey, I'm doing great. Okay, speed it up a little bit and find out where your outer limits lie. So.
No, you're exactly right. I hear people, they counter that. They counter when I say, oh, you need to be precise. They say, well, no, in a shootout, you're going to be moving really fast. And then when you shoot, the more you hit him all over his body, the better it is. Well, I'm not going to disagree that if you have hits all over someone's torso, that's probably going to be a bad day for them,
Yeah.
But the challenge for me is, if you can't shoot better than that, then it goes back to what we were talking about. So if that's how you do, and now they're 5 yards further away, well, then now you're missing the target on a lot of your shots. And so I don't agree with that. I think, if you've got a palm-sized center chest group, he's pretty much dead right there, right?
Yeah.
If you have shots spread all over the body, some of those are inconsequential and not life-threatening and not anything, right? So you better to just do the best you can. And the only way you get that is by slowing down and doing precision shooting. And there's nothing wrong with that. And anyone who thinks you can go from buy your first gun to wildcat combat shooting with no steps in between is just wrong. They're fooling themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you kind of made that point. We've all seen it. Guy walks up, especially on the indoor range, and does this massive mag dump, maybe 2 mags. He does a really wonderful, speed mag exchange and all that. And then the target comes back and he's filled the center box, on the target, and he's very satisfied with himself. But what did that show? He kept him in, 24 by 18. That's not good shooting. I'm sorry. It's just not. It may have been fast shooting, but it's not good shooting. So, same thing. Last time I was on an indoor range was at the SHOT Show in January with a bunch of media folks. And it's funny. I was with some folks from well-known training academies and some competitive shooters. And when they're handed a new gun, the first thing they do is slow, deliberate fire. They're checking the accuracy, and they'll maybe do that 2-shot drill and do a headshot and another headshot. And then now it's time to go to maybe the second magazine. Now they'll do a mag dump, and it's all generally like that stuff. So those are the guys that can do all this stuff. And what do they start with? They start with slow, accurate fire. I think that ought to teach you right there that that's what the experts do. It's not a video game. It's not YouTube warriors. These are the guys that have actually been there, done that, had the training, taught tens of thousands of people. That's how they do it. They do slow, deliberate fire to kind of check themselves, check their interface with the gun, see how the gun's doing, and then we'll go to a little faster and see kind of where we go with that. So,
well, these
good
are
enough for
people,
them, good enough for everybody.
And these are people, that's illustration. These are people who can shoot up to the ability of the gun.
Yeah.
You know, and
definitely.
so, I mean, you know, I do that. If I get a new gun, first thing I do is a precision shot or two. You see, well, where's the sights regulated? Or if somebody's shooting way off the target here and they say, oh, well, the sights need to be adjusted. I always take the gun and do a couple shots and find out where it's really hitting. So when in 1976 or so, it was the beginning of the combat matches, right? I lived in Southern California. There was an Oceanside Police Combat League. As a matter of fact, remember I sent you a video, an 8mm of me shooting it. Yeah. And I was shooting PPC. The vast majority of the people who were shooting these casual weekend matches had no experience other than this. So they would show up and said, wow, this is cool. I'm going to shoot this, you know? So they had a wide cross section of different guns and all that kind of stuff. Well, I kind of won all the time for a long time. And most of them shot way faster than I did, you know, but when the whistle blew, and you actually could see that in the thing I sent you there, I was at a barricade. I just moved out really slow, just stood, took my time, put the shots on the target, and other people, they're going like bam, 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 bam. But like you said, they're missing the target. So I think it was Wyatt Earp said, "Hurry up, but take your time."
Exactly. Exactly.
So I'm not, and I didn't say that to say what a good shot I was, but it was to illustrate though that it works. In other words, if you can hit the target accurately, then you'll learn how to be faster and smoother and accurate. And it's just as simple as that.
Well, I wanted to highlight one thing you said there. It's funny. I never thought about this. The quickest way to be ridiculed by an instructor and most of your fellow students is, and Roy, you've had these folks a lot. I have too. Well, the sights are off. Oh, really? And, you know, they're all one hole. It looks on to me. And you hand it back and walk away. And everybody's going, that guy is a boob. He's blaming his tools instead of himself. And so if you are that kind of guy, I'm sorry, or gal, it could be the sights. And that's why the instructor wants to test it, because I've seen that. It's like, oh, yeah, let's go to the bench. This thing is off. But I would say 75% of the time, there's that one whole group, and the instructor just hands it back and goes, "Nah, I don't think it's the sights. That's you. Sorry. Welcome to reality." So
it's true, and it's another reason though to own a .22 pistol, a single action, double action, a Ruger Standard Auto, whatever. That is the best thing in the world for you to teach yourself sight picture and take your time and learn to hit the target, you know, and then, shoot 3 or 4 magazines of that, slow fire, tape up one of those little targets I was telling you about with the little circles on it, warm up with your .22. Well, now when you transition to your 9mm or your whatever, I think you'll be amazed how well you do, you know, because it'll raise your expectations. So,
yep. Well, you know, in various training and competitive venues, I've noticed that thing that you talked about is if you've been training on, you know, maybe a 3-inch steel at 20 yards, when you go to a full-size plate at 15, it's like, oh my God, I could do that over my shoulder. So it's that psychological component that I know I can do a lot better than this. So, it builds confidence, and confidence is a part of this too, because not with all shooters, but I know sometimes I let myself get wrapped around the axle. And that famous quote, I was in a competition and Ken Campbell walked over and goes, "Just shoot." I won't use all the words he used, but he's like, "Just shoot. Stop thinking about it. Just shoot." I'm like, wow, how about that? And I won the competition. So that was a good day. So anyway, we're about out of time, Roy. Any parting words on this topic? And I'll say it, I think at least the third time now. Yeah, we get it. We're Fudds, okay? This is something they did in 1955, but it still has a place today. I don't care how many terrorists you have killed on Call of Duty. So anyway, your thoughts, Roy?
Just learn to shoot your gun, I mean, don't be that persona on TV or the video game or something, because more than likely you're not. And you'll do yourself a favor, and other shooters will have respect for you. When they see your target and there's very precise shooting on it, they will pay much more attention to that than the goofball next to you does 10 mag dumps on the same target at 7 yards, who's not learning anything. He's just making brass, so
let your shooting speak, nothing else.
It's really true, so all right, go do it. And right. If you have information on police shootings, red dot sight versus the old days, please leave a link for me in the comments.
Yeah. Comments on YouTube, or if you're listening to us, you can always reach out. Email, that's editor@gunspodcast.us. And while we're talking about Guns Podcast US, go there. You can see some of my writing. You can see links to all of our shows, and you can buy merch. And I won't say it's flying off the shelf, but we're selling some, and that helps keep me in beer money. So that's an important thing. Actually keeps me in ammo. So that's a good thing too. But also don't forget, we still are associated with gunsmagazine.com and its sister publication, American Handgunner. It's AmericanHandgunner.com, right, Roy? Or magazine?
Yeah.
I've forgotten. I haven't said it in so long. So anyway, I still write weekly on gunsmagazine.com, and all of your favorite gun goodness and gun writers are still there. So check that out. You can sign up for daily newsletters. You can get all of our great gun goodness, including this podcast, delivered directly to your inbox. So that's gunsmagazine.com. And of course, gunspodcast.us. So anyway, it's been a fun talk. We want to hear what you've got to say, despite the fact we're going to get called Fudds yet again, but we are the lethal Fudds, and we proudly embrace that. That just tells me that we've got experience. So anyway, and for the rest of you in the audience, which is a large percentage of Fudds, we're locking hands and united in our embrace of the idea. We've lived this long. We've experienced this much. There's nothing to be embarrassed about there. So anyway, on behalf of Roy Huntington, my official co-host, as I've often said, I am your host, Brent Wheat, and this is Guns Podcast US. And you know what comes next? Now get out there and get shooting.